All right. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's sessions of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. We are gathered today to conduct confirmation hearings. And before we get started with today's activity, I will go around and let representatives and senators introduce themselves. And I will start with Senator Hickman, please. Senator Hickman. There he is. Senator Hickman, you can introduce yourself if you would, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
We can, sir, yes.
Thank you. I'm Senator Hickman from Kennebec County. I live in Winthrop and I represent 11 towns. Good to be here today.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Farron.
Good morning. I'm Senator Brad Farron. I live in Norwich Walk and I represent the majority of the fine folks in Somerset County.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Kinney.
Good morning. I'm Representative Mary Ann Kinney. I represent the towns of Brooks, Burnham, Freedom, Jackson, Knox, Monroe, Thorndike, Troy, and Unity in Waldo County, House District 99.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Supika.
Hi, I'm Laura Supika, and I represent a portion of Bangor, which is District 126, soon to become District 22.
Thank you, Representative. Representative McCrate.
Good morning. I'm Jay McCrate, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick in the House District 51, soon to be House District 99.
Thank you, Representative. And last but not least, Representative Riley.
I am Representative Riley. I represent House District 34, which is part of Westbrook.
Excellent. And I'm Representative Chris Chiazzo. I represent House District 28, which is the beautiful area of West Scarborough. So we'll get started with the public hearings. The order we're going to go in is that which was listed on the agenda, which is we'll start with Mr. Dennis Marble first, followed by Mr. Joseph Hanslip, and then finish up with Mr. Noel March. So we'll begin our hearings with Mr. Marble. So this is a public hearing of the Joint Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs for the purposes of considering the nomination by the Governor of Mr. Dennis Marble of Hamden for reappointment to the Commission on Government Ethics and Election Practices. Under the law and the joint rules of the legislature, this committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee, members present and voting. As the chair of this committee, I will then send written notice to the committee's recommendations to the President of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other persons present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. This meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is participating in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has concluded. Pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statutes, which requires that there be an affirmative motion recommending confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative McCrate for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs recommend confirmation of Mr. Dennis Marble of Hamden for reappointment to the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices.
Thank you, Representative McCrate. The chair now recognizes Mr. Joseph Boucher for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Mr. Boucher, when you are ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Chiazzo and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Joe Boucher, and I am the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I am here today on behalf of the Governor to speak in support of the nomination of Dennis Marble of Hamden for reappointment to the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices. The commission consists of 5 members, 4 members nominated by each of the House and Senate's party leaders, and a 5th member jointly nominated by all 4 leaders. No more than 2 commission members may be enrolled in the same political party. A person may not be appointed to the commission who is a member of the legislature or the previous legislature, or is who was a declared candidate for an elective county, state, or federal office within 2 years prior to the appointment. Person may also not serve on the commission who is an officer, deputy director, employee, or primary decision maker of a party committee, political action committee, or a candidate committee. Dennis Marble was selected by the governor from lists submitted by Senate and House leadership to fill the vacant 5th seat of the commission in the summer of 2020. If reappointed today, he would receive a full term. Mr. Marble received his master's degree in reading and counseling from the University of Maine and a bachelor's degree in English from Colby College. He served as executive deputy director of the Bangor Area Homeless Shelter for 20 years and has served on the Hamden Town Council. He's also served as chair of the Bangor Regional Chamber of Commerce's Community Council, chair of the Area FEMA Board, and as a member of the statewide Homeless Council. In his many years of community service, Mr. Marble has been recognized by his peers and received the Bangor Region Leadership Institute's G. Clifton Eames Leadership Award in 2010 and the Bangor Region Chamber's 2015 Arthur S. Comstock Award for Community Involvement and Distinguished Leadership. On behalf of Governor Mills, I urge you to support the nomination of Dennis Marble of Hamden for reappointment to the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices, and I would be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. Any questions from the committee for the governor's representative?
Thank you.
Seeing none. At this time, I will now recognize Mr. Dennis Marble for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Mr. Marble, when you are ready, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Chiazzo and honorable members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. I was unsure as to what Joe was about to say, so I'm going to skip half of what I already submitted to you and just jump to the bottom half to basically say, when I initially sought appointment to this commission, I'd hoped that I could contribute to the reinforcement and protection of our democracy here in the state. I pledged to be diligent and objective if appointed, and that I would use both my life experience and the guidance provided in statute and regulatory language in my efforts. And I have done my, my best to live up to those promises. I can report to you that the commissioners and staff continue to provide the citizens of this state with fair and honest oversight of election practices. The collective efforts have been robust and driven by objective standards. The individual commissioners and staff comprise a representative team that I think the legislature can be proud of. I do ask that you vote to recommend to the Senate my reappointment, and I again pledge to you that I'll do my level best to contribute well to this important work. I thank you for your time this morning, and I'll try to answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marble. Any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we certainly always appreciate brevity in this committee for sure. So thank you for your testimony this morning. The chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Anyone who has a written statement but who does not wish to speak should have submitted the statement with the committee clerk prior to today's hearing. All such statements shall contain the name and residence of the person who prepared the statement. A copy of each written statement presented to the committee at this hearing will be made available to the nominee prior to the committee's vote, and the nominee will have an opportunity to respond to the written comment. Karen, I don't believe there are anyone signed up to testify live. If you could just double check and confirm that for me. Thank you. And I don't believe we received any written testimony. Wait a minute, I think maybe we did see some written testimony. Pardon me for a second here. We did receive written testimony. So so seeing no live testimony, we will conclude the public hearing. So the hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on the Veterans and Legal Affairs for Mr. Dennis Marble of Handon for reappointment to the Commission on Government Ethics and Election Practices is closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take a vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing, unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, I'll ask if there are any members present who object to proceeding to the vote immediately. Seeing no objections, then in accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by the yeas and the nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion of recommended confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? Okay, Karen, if you would please call the roll.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Farren.
Yay.
Senator Farren, yay. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCrate.
Yes.
Representative McCrate, yes. Representative Tuttle. Representative Tuttle, absent. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood. Representative Wood, absent. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey. Representative Corey, absent. Representative Dolph. Representative Dolph, absent. Mr. Chair, 7 have voted in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 5 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. 7 members of the committee have voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative. It is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs that the nomination of Mr. Dennis Marble of Handon for reappointment to the Commission of Government Ethics and Election Practices be confirmed. Congratulations, sir, and look forward to your long service with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, we will begin with Mr. Hanslip. So good morning again. This is a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee of Veterans and Legal Affairs for the purposes of considering the nomination by the governor of Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip of Sanford for the reappointment of the Gambling Control Board. Under the law and joint rules of the legislature, this committee is required to hold a public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members as present and voting. As chair of this committee, I will then send the written notice to the committee's recommendation to the President of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor's representative, the nominee, and other persons present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. This meeting is currently being live streamed in the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is participating in the event via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting is concluded. So pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the main statute, which requires there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs recommend confirmation for Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board.
Thank you, Representative. The chair now recognizes Mr. Joseph Boucher for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Thank you once again, Chair Chiazzo, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Joe Boucher, and I am the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm happy to be here today on behalf of the Governor to speak in support of the nomination of Joseph Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board. The board consists of 5 members. 4 must have training or experience in at least one of the following fields: corporate finance, economics, law, accounting, law enforcement, computer science, or the gambling industry. 1 member must have experience in the harness racing industry. Mr. Hanslip currently serves as a bail commissioner with the Maine Judicial Department and previously served as the Assistant Director of Safety and Security at St. Joseph's College. Before being medically disabled on the job, he served as a patrol officer in Groton, Massachusetts for, I believe, 9 years. Mr. Hanslip has been elected as a county commissioner in York County, serving from 1998 to 2004, served as a city councilor in Sanford, and was a member of the York County Budget Committee from 2005 until 2020. In 2021, Mr. Hanslip became a member of the Sanford Planning Board. In the spring of last year, Mr. Hanslip was appointed to a partial term on the Gambling Control Board, and if reappointed today, he would receive a full term. On behalf of Governor Mills, I urge you to support the nomination of Joseph Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. Any questions for Mr. Boucher from the committee members?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. The chair now recognizes Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip for the purpose of making a statement concerning his nomination. Mr. Hanslip, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Chiazzo. Good morning, everyone. Chair Chiazzo, members of this committee. My name is Joe Hanslip from Sanford, and I appreciate the opportunity to appear in front of you with regards to my nomination to the Gambling Control Board. And you heard my bio from Mr. Boucher, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanslip. I know you were before us earlier in the session as well, so I think we're very familiar with your qualifications for sure. But any questions from the committee for Mr. Hanslip? Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hanslip. I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your role on the planning board for Sanford and if you see any conflict there.
As a member of the planning board, we apply the zoning laws that have been promulgated by the city council or by the voters of Sanford. We look over plans, and I can't see any conflict whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCray. Any other questions for Mr. Hanslip from the committee? Okay, seeing none. The chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against the nomination. Karen, can you just confirm that there is nobody in the waiting room? Okay. Seeing none, all public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. We will review any additional written comments on the nomination that have been received by the committee, and then we'll vote on the nomination and notify the president of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 of the Joint Rules. In accordance with the law, the committee, so seeing no comment, the hearing for the Joint Committee Standing, the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs for Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board is closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take a vote on his nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing, unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, I will ask if whether any members present object to proceeding to take a vote immediately. Seeing none. The pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that the nomination of Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion for recommended confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? Okay, Karen, if you would please call the roll.
The chair recognizes Senator Hickman for the purposes of
Yay.
Senator Hickman. Senator Hickman votes yay. Senator Farren.
Yay.
Senator Farren, yay. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCrate.
Yes.
Representative McCrate, yes. Representative Tuttle. Representative Tuttle, absent. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood. Representative Wood, absent. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey. Representative Corey, absent. Representative Dolph. Representative Dolph, absent. 7 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 5 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. 7 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. It is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs that the nomination of Mr. Joseph R. Hanslip of Sanford for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board be confirmed. Congratulations, Mr. Hanslip, and thank you, sir, for your service and your continued service moving forward.
Thank you, and thanks to the committee members and staff.
Okay. Obviously, we have many people multitasking, and we very much appreciate Senator Hickman, who is also hearing confirmation hearings in the Labor Committee as we speak, multitasking with us. So very much appreciated, Senator. So up next, we will start the public hearing for Mr. Noel C. March. So this is a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee of Veterans and Legal Affairs for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Mr. Noel C. March of Hamden for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board. Under the law and joint rules of the legislature, this committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nomination by a majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chair of the committee, I will then send written notice to the committee's recommendations to the president of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor, her representative, the nominee, and the person present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. The meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view the committee's YouTube channel as soon after the meeting is concluded. Pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statutes, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs recommend confirmation of Mr. Noel C. March of Hamden for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board.
Thank you, Representative McCrate. The chair now recognizes Mr. Joseph Boucher for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Thank you once again, Chair Chiazzo, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Joe Boucher, and I am the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here on behalf of the Governor to speak in support of the nomination of Noel March of Hamden for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board. Mr. March has a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership from the University of New England and a master's in peace and reconciliation studies from the University of Maine. He has also attended the FBI's National Academy. Mr. March has served as the Chief Deputy Sheriff for the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, Director of the Maine Community Policing Institute, and Chief of Police, Director of Public Safety, Security, and Transportation at the University of Maine. In 2010, he became a United States Marshal for the District of Maine and remained in that role until 2018. He has also been a lecturer of justice studies at the University of Maine in Augusta, and for a brief period served at Maine MBNA as an assistant vice president and relationship manager. So he's had quite the varied career. In addition to his extensive career in law enforcement, he served as a founding trustee and president of the Life Flight of Maine Foundation, a member of the executive committee for Boy Scouts Troop 41, and a member of Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society's executive committee. Mr. March was approved by this committee last spring to fill a partial term on the board, and if approved today, once again, would receive a full term. On behalf of Governor Mills, I would like to thank you all for considering all of our nominations today, and I urge you to support Noel March for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Boucher?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you, sir. The chair now recognizes Mr. Noel C. March for the purpose of making a statement concerning this nomination. Mr. March, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Chair and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for the enthusiastic introduction. Joseph, I appreciate that. As you all know, my name is Noel March from Hamden, Maine, and I come before you today for consideration to be reappointed to the Maine Gambling Control Board. I fulfilled a unexpired term since April of this past year on the Maine Gambling Control Board. It has been a lesson that has been really invaluable to me. The importance of these kinds of positions, just as yours are as representatives and senators of public trust and public stewardship, are not lost on me. It's a privilege to serve, and the accountability responsibility, the transparency responsibility, and the check and balance responsibility of this commission is one that I appreciate and value, and would very much like the opportunity to serve in a full term if confirmed here today. I serve with a terrific group of people who are very competent and committed and accomplished, and as you've already heard. And I am ready to answer any questions that anyone may have of me, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. March. Any questions from the committee? Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. March, thank you for continuing to be willing to serve and do this. And listening to your resume and bio, I don't know what you do in your spare time. So thank you for your willingness to serve.
Oh, thanks very much, Senator Farren. That's very kind. My wife and I enjoy raising 3 children, and that takes up whatever spare time I can seem to find, but thanks for the comment.
Thank you, Senator Farren. Any other questions for Mr. March? Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. March, I'm just interested if you would say a little bit about your Master's in Peace and Reconciliation. It sounds like, sounds very interesting, and I'd just like to know a little bit more about it and how it relates. I mean, it's obvious how it relates, but thank you.
Well, sure. No, thank you for asking. It's a little known secret of the University of Maine and the UMaine Graduate School that it's a wonderful Master of Arts in Peace and Reconciliation degree that I completed at age 52. And I found that to be so important. I concluded really a 40-year career in law enforcement, local, county, state, and federal positions. And in this era of society, especially perhaps, although it's always been true, the importance of appreciating the core values of living peaceably among one another, not necessarily peacefully, because we're humans, but peaceably and with respect for one another's rights and responsibilities and property and life. And reconciliation over conflict is a critically important role for our law enforcement public servants to be knowledgeable in. And I seek to teach that, hopefully model that in my lecturer, my faculty role in justice studies at the University of Maine, but also in any law enforcement officers that I have the privilege to mentor. You know, in 2010, I was privileged that President Obama appointed me to the position of United States Marshal in his administration, serving the District of Maine for those 8 years. And it's then that I earned that degree. So life is a journey of learning, isn't it? So I encourage that as well. But thank you very much for the question, Representative McCray. It's a little point of pride that I hold, having that degree under my belt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I agree. I'm not sure that you have any spare time. It doesn't sound like you do. And I appreciate your service. Thanks.
I appreciate the support of my loving family. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCray. Any other questions for Mr. March? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, sir, for your testimony this morning. The chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. I didn't see anybody in the attendee room, but Karen, please confirm that we haven't received any requests for testimony. Okay. Seeing none. Anyone who has written, who has a written statement but who does not wish to speak should have submitted the statement with the committee clerk prior to today's hearing. All such statements shall contain the name of residence of the person who prepared the statement. A copy of each written statement presented to the committee at this hearing would have been made available to the nominee prior to the committee's vote, and the nominee will have an opportunity to respond to the written comment. So seeing no attendees, all public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed as follows. Review any additional written comments on the nomination that have been received by the committee, and then we will vote the nomination and notify the President of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 and the joint rules. So the hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs for Mr. Noel C. March of Hamden for reappointment of the Gambling Control Board is closed. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take the vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing, unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, I will inquire whether any member present objects to proceeding to take the vote immediately. Okay, seeing no objections. The pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs recommend to the Senate of the 130th Maine Legislature that the nomination of Mr. Noel C. March of Hamden for reappointment of the Gambling Control Board be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommendation of confirmation. A vote of no will be against the motion of recommended confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? Okay, Karen, when you're ready, please call the roll.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Farren.
Yay.
Senator Farren, yay. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCray.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Representative McCray, yes. Representative Tuttle. Representative Tuttle, absent. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood. Representative Wood, absent. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey. Representative Corey, absent. Representative Dolph. Representative Dolph, absent. 7 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 5 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. 7 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs that the nomination of Mr. Noel C. Marsh of Hampden for reappointment to the Gambling Control Board be confirmed. Congratulations, sir, and it's definitely a win for the state on all counts for sure. So congratulations.
Very kind. It's a privilege. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks. Stay warm.
Thank you, sir. You as well. So that concludes our agenda for confirmation hearings. Thank you, Mr. Boucher, for joining us.
Thank you.
We are next scheduled to hear reports from the Office of Marijuana Policy at 11:30. So we will stand in recess until 11:30. I'm hesitant to get started before then because I want to give people wishing to hear that in public an opportunity to schedule that. I don't want to start that before too long. So Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it possible for us to have a quick caucus?
Absolutely. Yes, we can do that. I will send out I'll send out the invite as soon as we're done here. So
Thank you.
with Representative Supika.
Thank you. I could just be really disorganized, so I apologize. Was there any paperwork or anything set out ahead of time about this that that I need to print out or anything? I was just looking through my email inbox. I don't know if the clerk sent anything out about like
The reports, the final reports available. We're going to wait for Director Gunderson to present the findings.
Okay, good. Thank you. I was afraid that I missed something.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, then the committee will stand in recess until 11:30. Again, I would suggest if you are going to caucus to leave this Zoom meeting, and I will send a link out, and hopefully we can get back in with the same link. So with that, we will stand in recess until 11:30. Thank you.
Sam, are you there?
Hey, Representative Wood.
Yes.
Sorry, I just came back to my desk.
Yeah, no, somebody said that we got a report from the OMP, and I just wondered if you knew where I could find it.
Oh, yep. I will forward it. I thought it was sent to the whole committee, but
I'm sure that it was. I just missed it and wanted to take a quick look.
yeah, I'll resend it right now.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right, good morning, folks. Just make sure we got a quorum here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if everybody unmutes, we can establish the quorum and, sorry, not unmutes, turn the video on. We can establish the quorum and we can get going.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say Representative Kinney's dog is like perfect. It does not move at all through the whole thing. It just sits there. It's the best behaved dog I've ever seen in my life.
She is a sweetheart. She's a Leon Burger, and she, of course, that's just a picture of, static picture, but she's just a sweet, sweet, sweet puppy. She's 105 pounds.
Yeah. I've met her. She's not a puppy.
Yeah, she's only 2, so yeah, but she is. I have never had such a sweet personality type dog as she is. As big as she is, she's just a great big love bug.
She almost had my wife convinced it was time for us to get one. So it took me a lot of work to convince her not. Thank you, Representative Kinney, for that. I appreciate that.
That's right. You got to meet her at the Sugar House when you came last year.
We did. We did.
And she's just the sweetest thing. Gentle giant for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind did you say she is, Marianne?
She's a Leon Burger. It was a breed. It's a German breed. They wanted something that looked like a lion. And she looks like a lion. But yeah, but gentle as all get out.
And she's beautiful.
Thank you.
So officially, we don't need to have everybody turn their video on. They're in the room. We're not voting on it. We're just going to hear testimony. So I was hoping that we could get this part just to make it official. So good morning, folks. Thanks for coming back. The purpose of the rest of our agenda for today is to receive the report back from the Office of Marijuana Policy. If you recall, we directed them through 2 pieces of legislation in the last session. LD 882 and LD 1242 had report back requirements. So the office has decided they combine both reports into this one, and they're going to present the findings for us today. I think Sam mentioned we received this I think officially this morning. And we're working to get it up on the website too for those in the public who wish to see it and read it. But we're going to allow give Director Gunnison the opportunity to come in and present the findings, and certainly ask him some questions, and then we can talk about next steps after the presentation. So having said that, let me bring in Director Gunnison. Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sam, I think it's up on the website. Am I looking at the right thing under reports received?
I just sent the email to have it posted, so it may be up already, and I'll pull that up right now and check on my side.
I've got it. Adult use from January 1 to December 31, 2020.
This would be, this report is regarding the medical use working groups. So it's probably not that one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but it should be up certainly by, definitely by the end of the day. So we'll give the director the opportunity to present to the committee, take some time to digest it, and then we can talk about next steps after we're done with the presentation. Representative Wood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to tell Representative McCray that Sam just emailed all of us the report again. So I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh,
just like 5 minutes ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that when you asked the initial question.
We'll get there. We are getting there, for sure. We're getting there. Okay, any other questions before we turn it over to Director Gunderson? Okay, see you none. Director Gunderson, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Good to see everybody again. And I will share, there's also a copy of the report on the OMP website. If you're still looking for it, we have it there for you.
Perfect.
So start off by saying thank you for the invitation to come share really the results of the work that we did through the summer, fall, even into the early winter with this working group. And Sam, do I have the ability to share? I did bring a slide deck. Is that all right with you, Mr. Chair?
It's fine with me if as long as we can give you if you can get permission to do it through the Zoom link.
I think I got it.
There you go.
Can everybody see the slide deck there?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So again, good morning, everybody. My name is Director Eric Gunderson with the Office of Marijuana Policy. And the idea here today is to kind of share the results, the conversations, the work, the next steps, recommendations, again, from the working group that we assembled and met 5 times over about 12 hours, late summer into the fall, which resulted in the report that you should have. So happy to get going. So as far as goals and objectives of the next, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, certainly first just want to provide a little bit of background. We can go over an executive summary of the report. I think it's 50 or 60 pages long. Give a high level overview of the membership that made up the marijuana working group, the medical marijuana working group. Then we can go over some findings and recommendations, really topics that we had universal consensus from the group. We also had a number of conversations that didn't result in a formal vote or universal consensus, but certainly worth sharing with the committee, because certainly some next steps can be taken, or at least the conversations can continue with this group. We can discuss OMP's approach to rulemaking this year, and then obviously happy to answer any questions from the report or this presentation at the end. So first, as Representative Chiazzo reminded everybody at the end of last session, 2 bills were passed, LD 1242 and 882, which had report back or stakeholder engagements requirements in them. First, 882 was kind of geared around getting with a group of stakeholders, talking about the program from a 30,000-foot level. What improvements can be made, what recommendations or changes can we bring to the legislature to keep the program moving forward. And then 1242 with a group of stakeholders, have a conversation about the rules that we can move forward with. So there's a shared level of understanding of all stakeholders within the program moving forward. And before we even put together the formal or competitive application process to serve in that working group, we did communicate a purpose. You can see it there. It's really to advise on regulatory issues, best practices, and patient access and education, contribute to ongoing improvements in the program, and really to fulfill the legislative charges in 1242 and 882. And I will say we did combine those 2 efforts. It really just made a lot of sense. It's hard to have one conversation without the other about rules and recommended changes. So for government efficiency's sake, and really having those more challenging conversations with a broad group of stakeholders, we decided to really combine those efforts, have those conversations with a full group, and move forward with this report and recommendations. And I will say at the beginning or throughout the process, our working group members were happy to have those conversations. So with any work like this, we needed to make sure that we had a clear vision of what the work was going to be done and how we were going to approach it. So in the very first meeting at the very beginning, I shared what we thought our vision should be for the work. And I think our working group members did a great job of buying in. But first and foremost, it was really to put an emphasis and prioritize on the work we did around our main patients. And also main businesses, and developing recommendations and next steps that really worked for all interested stakeholders and those groups that are around the table. So we opened up a competitive application process. We were absolutely thrilled with the amount of highly qualified individuals that did apply. Had 83. We originally had slated a working group of 16 members, and OMP really there to facilitate. At the end, we had so many good applications, we went with 17. And we conducted all of our meetings, full group and one-offs, via Zoom. And you can kind of see the work breakdown there on the slide as far as our meeting times. And I will say, before I go to the next slide, we try to do this in the most transparent and open way possible. So all of the meetings were streamed on OMP's YouTube page. They were archived on our website. We also spent staff hours to transcribe all of those meetings if people would want to access the information of those meetings that way. All the agendas and information, resources, materials that were discussed or shared are also on our website if anybody's interested to take a look there. So as far as membership is concerned, like I said, we originally had the intent to have 16. We had so many good applications, we ended up going with 17. But at the end of the day, we settled on 6 registered caregivers, 2 dispensary representatives, a testing facility representative, a manufacturing facility representative, 3 qualifying patients, 2 representatives from municipalities, and 2 relevant healthcare professionals, one which issues certifications within the medical program, and also one that works for the city of Bangor with an eye towards prevention. So as far as topics of discussion that received universal consensus, these are the ones we'll get into more detail as we go through the next slides, but I think it's important to point out that I think as a group, they did a really good job, and we did a really good job of keeping the conversation centric to that vision that we discussed in the very first meeting was, let's make this the best program possible for Maine patients. So you can see a lot of them fall into that bucket of patient centrism. So first, access to medical cannabis. Then we have a concrete recommendation as far as how to adjust written certifications, recommendations around the pediatric patient certification process, making educated decisions is really educational resources, moving towards a single card system for caregiver assistance, in the working group's opposition to the state's inventory tracking system portal, metric. So first and foremost, as far as concrete recommendations that came out of those conversations with the working group was access to medical cannabis. And we did formalize this one with the unanimous vote. It was really around patient confidentiality. Through the conversations, through the meetings, this was a theme that continued to come to the forefront of all of the conversations that we had. So we really wanted to formalize that and be able to have that as a concrete recommendation in this report going back. But the idea here and the approach that we took in the formal vote was really to make a recommitment to putting an highest priority on patient confidentiality, which has really been a cornerstone of the program in the state since its inception, and really just refocus on that. And anytime we have a conversation around legislation or rules, or conversations, making sure that that is top of mind and a consideration moving forward with any decisions made with the program. So again, just reaffirming that patient confidentiality is an incredibly high priority for stakeholders, including the patients in the program. Excuse me. Next is the multi-part written certification. So there's a recommendation that came from the working group, and you can see the statutory sites there. I'm sure as the conversation happens at the committee, Sam can help flesh through the different sections of law that would need to be changed, but which is have basically multiple options for patients in accessing the medicine that they need. Right now, statute requires there be like a hard copy written certification for patients along with their ID at point of purchase. Through the conversations, particularly around telemedicine and pediatric patients, this presented some challenges as far as the time between they were actually prescribed the certification and when they actually received it. A couple of our working group members brought up that it could be a 10 to 2 week period between when they're actually issued the certification and when they need to access their medicine, and that can be a tough time. So they wanted to move forward with some multi-prong approach, a digital copy, a paper copy, and again, with an eye towards the conversation we had around patient confidentiality. In order to do a straight digital cert, we didn't want to have like a patient database to be able to issue those certifications. So they came to agreement on this multi-prong approach where they would still be issued the hard copy, the written certification, but a caregiver storefront or dispensary selling medicine could use a photo of that certification, whether it be on your cell phone or whatever it may be, to help with the flexibility there in that time that they don't have the hard copy. So moving towards allowing, maintaining the written certification, but also allowing a digital copy to be accepted when purchasing their medicine. There we go. Next, again, in the patient centrism bucket is the pediatric patient certification process. So this was brought up by one of our patient representatives who their son, a pediatric patient, their son is actually the pediatric patient in care. And then one of our caregiver members of the working group actually focuses on working with pediatric patients. And it was it's brought up, and we've had these conversations with some of these stakeholders before about how really the certification process for pediatric patients in statute doesn't necessarily mirror the way it's happening in the real world today. So there's two recommendations that we got to from the group. First and foremost, currently in law for pediatric patients, there still remains a list of qualifying conditions. As I'm sure we're all well aware now, for a qualifying patient, those qualifying conditions don't exist anymore. So a thought of maybe taking that out and or striking the advisory opinion requirements in Title 22. More or less what this comes down to, if a pediatric patient is prescribed or given a certification or prescribed medical marijuana for a condition outside of those qualifying conditions, they need to get a second opinion from a provider, which is provided on a list by the Office of Marijuana Policy. I can say when we inherited the program, and even today, that list has not existed. We certainly don't feel like we have the level of expertise to go out and pick and choose which individuals in the healthcare field should be or be qualified to offer those second opinions. And or striking that advisory opinion requirement from Title 22, and all the citations are there. So really, again, aligning the pediatric patient certification process with the way that's happening now, and to make access for those patients, or expanding access to those patients and making that process easier. So for making educated decisions, this is really an educational resources. So for as far as next steps here or possible recommendations to this committee, there's a lot of conversations about a lack of education, a lack of knowledge for providers, for registrants, for patients, for municipalities, really across the board when it comes to the medical program. So what we have done after all the feedback and conversations that we've had, we've made a commitment to dedicating a section of our website to providing some of those resources for patients, for registrants, for municipalities, really just additional resources for those individuals to help get answers to the questions that they're looking for, to help them know how to engage with the program better, really just offering that extra level of help, or offering the OMP resource for those folks. There was conversation about OMP providing kind of dabbling and getting close to medical advice within those resources. We obviously don't feel comfortable. That should be between the patients and the individual that's giving them the certification. But there's certainly more that we can do, and those conversations will be continue. We can also engage those same stakeholders as we start to build out those resources for those different stakeholders. There was universal consensus for single card for caregiver assistance. And I know this committee has heard this before. We talked a lot about it last session. We are certainly still in support of it. And the entire working group was in support of it. So back in 2018, again, when the legislature changed the kind of the dynamics and the makeup, and how the medical program worked. One of the changes was they allowed caregivers to go from an individual assistance to an unlimited number of assistants. However, the legislature didn't change the process in which an individual would become an assistant. And there is statutory language that would need to be adjusted or cleaned up to allow us to do this. So really what we're trying to get to is if one individual, one assistant is an assistant to 5 different caregivers, they need 5 different cards now. And with some language cleanup, we can get something a little bit closer to what an IIC or an individual identification card looks like on the adult use side, which would basically authorize an assistant to assist any number of caregivers with that one card. And I certainly think that would be much more efficient, both on the industry side and here at the Office of Marijuana Policy. And then finally, consensus around opposition to the metric inventory tracking system. So this is a weird one for us, and we hope this committee will have the conversation because it's still on the books that the department will develop an online portal for these tracking purposes. But in conversation, certainly from the industry members of the working group, they felt that metric was not the right tool to use for any number of reasons. When we did have early conversations, they did ask for us to move forward with some concrete recommendations for the group or a starting point for conversation or proposal. And I will say, I think that proposal is, I know it is attached as an appendix to the report. So obviously we feel slightly different than the consensus, just because we understand some of the importance of the inventory tracking system or metric in this case. And our proposal was to really limit it to the registrants that were using it, considering a lot of the conversation last session was based around creating a carve out for the smaller operators. So we certainly heard that from this group, and our proposal we moved forward was limiting it to only dispensaries and caregivers who operate as storefront, essentially capturing anywhere from 300 to 400 out of the 3,100 within the inventory tracking system, understanding the benefits there, and that the vast majority of the product moving through the system goes through those registrants. But again, at the end of the day, the working group, their recommendation, or they felt that metric was not the right tool. So really our recommendation would be for the legislature to consider the language around that inventory tracking portal. Representative, I guess Chair Chiazzo, do you want me to answer questions as we go, or I'm happy to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, there's a lot of info to get through, so I'm a little, if it's all right with you, Representative Wood, if you just keep track of your question, and maybe we can circle back at the end, that would probably be helpful, because I know there's a lot of things for us to possibly go down a rabbit hole with this stuff. So,
yeah,
I get it.
Thank you, Representative. Sorry, Director, please go ahead.
Nah, we have more rabbit hole material too, and I'm happy to go back to any of these slides when we have that, when we have questions. So now we're transitioning into topics of discussion or substantive conversations the working group had over their 5 meetings that maybe wasn't formalized in a vote or didn't have a universal consensus, but certainly there could be recommendations or next steps from this committee on any number of these topics. And I'll do my best job to communicate where the working group was. So again, as far as patient centrism is concerned, accessibility, price, and education, really this one was, again, just a conversation around how important these things are and how they interplay with each other. And as decisions are made, both from an agency standpoint and from the legislature, really the access for patients and keeping that medicine affordable is of the utmost importance. And then maintaining and strengthening the relationship between providers and patients they are serving. So I know we go into more detail in the report, but this was a really interesting conversation, specifically from 1 or 2 of our patient representatives and 1 or 2 of our caregiver representatives. I will say one of the individual in the working group that was the medical provider that issued these certifications was certainly a model of what we would hope for within the program. The time, the attention, the care, the resources, the follow-ups that she offered her patients was certainly admirable, and what you would hope was offered from all providers. And there was a conversation about potentially strengthening those relationships between the provider and the patients. I will say that within the statute, there is language about a bona fide patient provider relationship. However, we do know, and it was brought up in conversations, that there are outfits out there that really maybe don't offer that same level of attention, that same level of care, that same level of access, that are really more burn and churn, pumping out high number of certifications. So that conversation was interesting to hear, and certainly happy to talk more about it. I'm sure some of the working group members could give you better information than I could about that dynamic. But just to know that exists, because statutory language now does have that bona fide relationship. And in the past that we did really try to define what that meant with some pushback, but kind of an interesting dynamic there. So supporting Maine's host communities wrestling with municipal regulations when it comes to the medical program. And this conversation took up a lot of time in I believe it was our 4th and 5th meeting, really understanding the challenges and what towns across the state are struggling with. And I think this conversation, there's two parts to it, really. There's OMP taking the responsibility of really doubling down our efforts on what we're doing now and really making ourselves available as a resource to these towns, not getting into legal advice, but just being there to assist them, educate, provide resources so towns know their lane, what they can and can't do, and just make ourselves more accessible to really have that working partnership together. And the second was the municipal representatives did bring up the challenge that they do have around trying to execute and do their jobs, right? And it came down to the confidentiality provisions. So a lot of these towns have ordinances, require some permits, right? They're allowed to regulate, but they're not allowed to limit the number. So the only way that they're allowed to do their jobs or enforce their ordinances or whatever rules they have in place is for a registrant to be really proactive and come forward to them. Or the way that the statute is written now, they can come to the Office of Marijuana Policy with a one-off asking, essentially, is this individual within your program? So you can see that would create some challenges for the municipality. So the conversation really ended, I believe, in the 5th working meeting with some level of consensus that OMP could share that information proactively with municipalities to help them, to enable them to do their job while maintaining a level of confidentiality for caregivers who operate in the traditional sense, the traditional model. Basically meaning if they're still operating out of their home, out of their dwelling unit, doing all of those authorized activities, that we can still keep that information confidential. But if they're operating in a more commercial way, not just your retail stores, your manufacturing or dispensaries, but even outside of those in more of a commercial way, that again, we could proactively share that information with towns so towns can go about doing their jobs and the towns and the registrants can actually form a better working relationship on that front. And I believe the distinction was drawn at the end of the 5th meeting around this, trying to differentiate what that would look like. I don't know if the actual quote is in the report or not, but we could go back and pull it up for you. Really, it came to if the registrant, if the caregiver is still operating and executing all their authorized activities out of their dwelling unit, their home, then they can maintain that level of confidentiality. But even if they had constructed a structure on their property, a greenhouse or a warehouse or a building for authorized activities, that may kick them into a group where we would share that information or would be in a position to be able to share that information or lose that confidentiality when it comes to municipalities. So I hope I explained that clearly. So again, with an eye towards really removing some of those challenges and tension there with municipalities and forming a more better positive working relationship with our registrants in our towns. So differentiating between small and commercial caregivers. I know we talked a lot about this last session around the rules, really with an eye towards figuring out a better way to scale registrants within the program. Right now, there's a definition of caregiver, and it covers all caregivers, whether it's a caregiver who grows 6 plants and offers medicine to a small number of patients versus a large-scale commercial caregiver operation that's larger than even a dispensary. So unfortunately, while we really don't have concrete recommendations within the report, you can see some of the conversations or where the lines might be drawn with work and conversation from the working group members. But this one is certainly ongoing, and we're happy to continue some of that work. And I'm sure that conversation is going to continue with this committee as well. But we didn't get there. So examining the relationship between O&P and our caregiver community. So certainly from our vantage point, our perspective, we found a lot of value in these working groups. Although it takes a lot of time and a lot of staff hours, there's certainly the value there to have the conversations about the program, about one-off issues, hearing from those that are impacted. So in an attempt to really strengthen the relationship, not only between, I'll say, our industry stakeholders on the medical side, but on the adult use side, is to really double down and make a commitment to expand our stakeholder engagement moving forward. And you're certainly going to see that from the Office of Marijuana Policy in 2022. I'm sorry to say that I missed the public hearing last week, but I know our Director of Policy, Gabby Pierce, spoke to at least one of those efforts around putting together a working group, a metric working group for those that utilize that tool on the adult use side, which would be really focused on a one-off issue working group. But I think our intentions and our vision are not only to have those one-off working groups within both of our programs, also further stakeholder engagement around our rule process, certainly putting together some formal stakeholder engagement around our municipalities, and then certainly an eye towards community listening sessions just to get out, to show O&P as a resource, hear where people are at, which will better inform any decisions that we make in the office. So stakeholder engagement, while it certainly was hoped to be a priority in the first 3 years of our existence, there always seemed to be a higher priority that kind of knocked it down the rung. But we have essentially locked it in as the top priority for 2022. So excited to move forward on that front. Using data and metrics, we hear a lot about this one. So really what this one gets down to, we understand the limited data that we have on the medical side and the wealth of data that we have on the adult use side, mainly because of, yes, inventory tracking system. And we know that we use it for compliance, and we know we have the legislative directive to use all of that data to make more data-driven decisions, better understand the impact of these programs on Maine as a whole, on community issues, health and safety issues. And while it would have been nice to have that for the medical side, understanding that might not be a political reality, really to hear from this committee and the legislature what your priorities are, what you would say would be a successful medical program, and then working backwards off that to see if there are metrics or data that we can capture to help measure any type of progress towards those goals would be helpful. I will say we did hear a lot from industry stakeholders last year around the rules. What data are we using to help inform these decisions? What data are we using to help put in certain regulations, while having a hesitation of actually providing us tools to capture said data. So it's kind of a fine line, a fine dance that we're trying to work. While I don't think data is the end all be all, it can be a helpful tool, but I would put it on this committee just to kind of ask, again, what our priorities should be. What do you think would make a successful medical program? And if there's anything that we can capture to help measure that growth or progress, that would be incredibly helpful. And then expanding potency and safety testing. This was the big one. We talked about this one from the first meeting right through the last meeting. And we had some passionate conversation, led mostly by our qualifying patients and some of our industry representatives that felt strongly that there should be some testing. We certainly had some working group members that felt there should be no testing or simply OMP should do audit testing. But at the end of the day, excuse me. But at the end of the day, the conversation from the working group members, the 17 working group members, seemed to coalesce around two general ideas. And again, we were asked to bring forward a proposal to help start to pull all of these conversations together. So the first was a limited final form testing regime, mandatory for only, again, those commercial entities. So if you operate a dispensary or if you operate a caregiver storefront, that product should be tested. And tested, again, only final form in limited panels. So it doesn't really look a lot like the adult use testing, with an eye towards of helping mitigate those costs, again, which was a priority of a lot of our working group members. And then also, as additional panels come on, do it in a delayed way, again, helped kind of ease into it. So again, the proposal is in the report. You can take a look at it, but again, it was limited. If your product is, if product's sold on a dispensary store shelf or a caregiver store shelf, that it go through a limited mandatory testing regime, really testing for the analytes that have the largest health impact, negative health impact, or the ones that we have the data that we know are out there and exist or are making it on store shelves today, with that time-sensitive rollout, while giving OMP the authority to audit sample for other potential contaminants. The other, where I think the majority kind of coalesced at the end of the fifth meeting, because everybody was feeling good and we were all working really well together, was essentially having OMP roll out the scope of that testing regime, kind of the way I described it early on. You're testing for potencies, cannabinoid profiles, molds and mildews. Really the most important as far as patient access and contaminants that we see most. And then having it be on a voluntary basis. So if I'm a registrant, I can go through that. I can push my product through the testing regime for those limited number of analytes, and I can put it on the shelves in a voluntary way. Or I could choose not to, but the labeling should be as transparent as possible for the qualifying patients. Essentially, if they choose not to engage in that testing, that the product be properly labeled, where it says, not just letting the patient know that it's not been tested. I don't know what the verbiage would be, but really just more of a voluntary testing regime with full transparency for patients. I mean, we talked a lot about that, so I hope I did a good job of kind of synthesizing that down. So now going into some of the requirements for 1242, where we were asked to kind of develop some processes. So develop a process for stakeholder engagement around the rules. Again, that's why we put together this whole working group. Again, we had 5 meetings, had 12 hours of conversations with a wide group that really informed us from a high level what our approach would be to the rules. And I think with us wanting to really take a step back and hit a reset, this was the best path forward. Again, fill in the information deficits that we do have, listen to our stakeholders, and put together a rule that more works for all those stakeholders. So that's the process that we went through for the rule that is now public, and we do have a public hearing coming up on that rule. Process for hiring rulemaking consultants. So I will say the legislature gave us authority in law to hire a rulemaking consultant for both the medical and adult use rules. OMP early in 2019 went through the state procurement process. We put it on RFP. It was a competitive process, and a panel at the end of the day selected our current rulemaking vendor. which is Friedman and Koski. I will say that that contract ends in March 2022, and OMP will not be renewing or going back to bid for rulemaking consultants. That's simply from the fact that we're 3 years in. We have a higher level of expertise and experience now, where to go through the rulemaking process, we will not need additional consultants. And then economic effects of any new rule. So certainly important to understand the impacts of these new rules and regulations. And I really hope that that is clear with the rules that we put forward. Understanding that these rules will impact a wide number of stakeholders and businesses and patients when it comes to access and cost, particularly around inventory tracking and security is what we heard mainly. But I think the rules reflect this commitment to understanding those impacts. And if there's anything in there that we think or you folks think that would have a larger economic impact or want to better understand it, we certainly do have the state economists that we can leverage to help kind of get it down into a dollar figure so we can better understand the impact of any new change moving forward. And these last 3 slides, again, are just a summary of everything that I rushed through. Don't think we need to go to them, but certainly happy to talk more in detail about any number of topics that I just covered in the last 40 minutes.
Thank you, Director Gunnison. Certainly a lot of information to get through and a lot of hard work by, I think, everybody involved. Actually, you know what? If you can stop sharing your screen, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lot to digest for sure, and I know we're just kind of getting a look at this, some of us for the first time. So, questions. I think Representative Wood, you had. Did you remember what yours were?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gunderson, I'm looking, there you are, in my Hollywood squares. My question, as you were going through the recommendations at the beginning, is my questions are really around tracking and the metric system. And I was just trying to understand that particular recommendation, I believe said that the working group was opposed to using metric, but the OMP is not opposed. So I'm just trying to understand, or maybe I misunderstood that. I'm just trying to understand, is it just about metric? Is there another system out there? Because my understanding is that everybody that does any tracking in the country is using metric, except I think there's one state, Washington or someplace, that has developed their own system. So I was just looking for more clarity. I didn't quite get all that.
Well, first, a couple of things to unpack there. There are certainly other vendors that offer the same kind of inventory tracking. Metric is certainly the industry leader in 13 other states. There are other vendors that state utilize, and you are right, Washington is in the process of developing their own. But I wanted to make sure that we clearly communicated the conversation, the consensus of the working group, that they felt metric was not the right tool for the medical program. And really what I was saying was, when asked to move forward some concrete proposal so there could be a centralized conversation around it, we felt that our initial proposal was reflective of the conversation that we heard from this committee last time, to create a carve out to make sure that we didn't impact those smaller operators. So again, we moved forward with that proposal for discussion with a working group that would impact 300 to 400 stakeholders. But at the end of the day, yeah, the working group had consensus that metric was not the tool. And just simply communicating that from a regulatory standpoint, we understand the frustration around metric. We understand that if I'm a registrant, I've never used it, I wouldn't want to use it. But we also recognize the benefits of having some level of inventory tracking system from the state's perspective. But yeah, the consensus of the working group was that metric was not the tool to use.
And if I could just do a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mark.
So they're not saying the working group wasn't opposed to tracking, they were opposed to using metric, which I understand from people that I've talked to It's a very clunky, difficult to use system. I can't hear you, Eric.
Director Gunnison, we just lost your audio somehow, and it doesn't look like you're on mute.
I'm back.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, my computer does that weird. I don't want to speak for them, but I mean, I think it was certainly not metric as the tool, I think is what they coalesced around. But I would imagine any type of other vendor out there that offers a similar product, whether it be BioTrack or MJ Freeway, would not be the answer either, at least from the working group's perspective. But again, I don't want to speak for all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up, Representative Wood? You good? You all set? Okay, thank you. Representative Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Gunderson, for being here. I know in the public hearing last week, Representative Corey kept asking questions on metric as well. And several members were asking for a presentation from metric to help us understand a little more of what the process is, how it's doing the tracking and things like that. I believe it's Representative Sapika's bill had something to do with the tracking, and if we could get some kind of a proposal, have a presentation as to what exactly metric is doing and how it's working, what it is that doesn't work, what does work, what we can see from there. If there's something we can get for follow-up on there and have metric come before us, we would really appreciate that if that would be possible.
Yeah, I think what we can do, I mean, it will be a riveting meeting, I'm sure, but I'm certainly our director of data analytics, the one that was in charge of implementation and support of the metric system, could give a tutorial of really fundamentally how it works, things that we may be able to do, and why some of the proposals in Representative Sapika's bill would essentially render a lot of the functionality unusable. But I would certainly be happy to do that. Giving you that tutorial. It would be incredibly boring, but if you're willing, I'm willing.
I think we were kind of interested. It would be something that, yeah, it'll be boring, but at the same time, it's necessary boring. I think at some point, understand what it is that the caregivers and so forth are using for their tracking. It would help us understand better what to do with the bills.
Sure.
Yeah. If I could just weigh in a little bit too, Representative Kinney, I think, it's important for us to I mean, we regulate and oversee the Office of Marijuana Policy. I'm still a little skittish about bringing in a particular vendor, but certainly we can express our concerns and our expectations to the Director Gunderson and have his staff available to answer those questions. And if they can't answer those questions, we will have to find a way to have him answer those to our satisfaction, perhaps another way. I'm just hesitant to put any vendor like on the spot and have somebody there and where we grill them about I don't know what's proprietary, I don't know what's there, and ultimately we need to have those answers, I think, but I think going through the office is probably the more appropriate way to do that. So I just wanted to kind of level set that one. So Representative Kinney, sorry, you're gonna follow.
No, that's okay. I understand proprietary information and so forth, but I think we need to have a little bit of an understanding of how the system works, because I think that's been something that's been confusing for members of this committee as well as for caregivers and so forth that are using the program. Just to have an overview, maybe not necessarily know the proprietary pieces, but if we can have someone help us understand how they're doing the tracking, what it does. We were hearing about 100 different tags for one batch of plants, and trying to figure out a way that's more cost effective, because it sounds like these are little plastic tags that are polluting the environment. And this is something that a lot of people in this legislature are very interested in conservation. And this is, I think, something we really do need to look into.
Agreed. Director Gunderson, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. It would be my expectation that we would bring somebody from the Office of Marijuana Policy to show you how the program functions, how it works, the workflows, understanding that Metric is our vendor, and they've been a great partner, but they are our vendor. So I know that Gabby had described to you the working group. Really, they would be there for a resource for us to understand technical issues that maybe arise. But they do have, they are able to customize to a certain extent. So at the end of the day, they can do what we ask them to do. But yeah, we could definitely bring somebody from OMP to help walk you through that process and show you what it looks like.
Thank you, Representative King. Senator Farron.
Yeah, so in my mind, tying this conversation together just a little bit is I think we're all kind of looking for the same thing, and I understand what Representative Kinney's asking for, and Chairman your concerns, and I think what I heard from this presentation and also what I've heard about how we're tracking this stuff, it goes back to the RFP, right? The vendor only puts forward what's in the RFP that either we as policymakers or the department asked for them to do. So I agree, it's really not the vendor that I mean, because they have the contract, that's where the focus is on, but it's really on what were they asked to provide in their RFP. And I think through this working group and this report, it's our job as policymakers to listen to the bills that have been provided and the feedback, and basically what the director was asking for with this is some guidance on what it is that we want them to do as policymakers, and that goes back to that RFP and what's provided there. Instead of just focusing on that one vendor, it's really us and the director and the department to identify those and to address those needs. So while I'm glad to get that data and look at it, you're only measuring what was asked to be measured or what was asked to be tracked. And I think it's our job to define that better.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, as far as metric, when we were had the public hearing for Representative Supika's bill, or the work session, whatever we had, the thing that I'm most interested in, and I don't necessarily need to have metric, but maybe more information from your office, is about their customer service and how flexible they are at making changes. And to Senator Farron's point, I don't know how that's built into the RFP, but I think that's the thing I'm hearing from a lot of the business owners is there's pieces of metric that they don't work, that they have ideas about how to change it. The change that Representative Supika brought forward would require, I believe, a programming change. So that's the thing I'm most interested in, because I'm hearing caregivers or business owners say that they're just not getting good customer service. So that I just want to follow up and say that's the piece that I'm most interested in.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Senator Hickman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Gunderson. Could you just speak a little bit more to why there was such a consensus in the working group that metric wasn't the answer? I think that we heard from, I think one person used the word disaster. Maybe that was an overstatement, maybe not, in the adult use industry where it is required. And I think the committee may consider holding space to hear from more members of the adult use market who are having trouble with metric outside of the public hearing process or for the work session. But what was the concern for those in the working group about tracking but not using metric?
Well, I think some of it came from some of the members of the working group also operate on the adult use side and are using metric now. Right. And it's just an added a step in the process, right, that they felt was not needed for whatever. I don't want to put words in their mouths. But I was actually surprised that the proposal that we put forward wasn't more well received, understanding where the conversation had left off in the past. But yeah, I don't want to speak for them. I think whether it's, again, metric or another vendor, it's not necessarily just metric. It's the electronic tracking, which is a non-starter, or at least they coalesced around, we don't want that added layer of regulation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Director. I wanted to go back to when you were talking about the patient-centered approach. And you were talking about a commitment to maintain and strengthen the relationship between medical provider and patient they're serving. And I'm not sure how OMP does that, or the legislature mandates that. And you explained a little further, saying there's some providers who are doing that relationship building and that good care that I think we all want, and others are, I think you used the word churning.
Burning and churning. I think that was
Burning
a
and
quote.
churning.
I think that was a quote from one of our working group members. Yeah, it was just a conversation around what the medical provider and the patient relationship and process should look like. Like I said, our working group member that was the medical provider seemed like the model in which we should strive for, in the amount of care, the time spent, the advice, the resources given, and the follow-up. And then we heard also from one of our caregiver representatives and our patient representative who was actually representing their child who's a pediatric patient that is really looking for those things and needs those things and needs to have the conversation. And on the other hand, it was brought up about these other, what I think was called burn and churn providers, where you get online or make a phone call, 2 minutes later, you have your certification with very little back and forth or conversation or resources given. And so why I brought that up as far as the conversation, even though we got to no real next steps on that front, is just to let you know that conversation happens. And also within statute, there's language that says there needs to be a bona fide relationship between the provider and the patient. We know that that's not necessarily happening. We did try to define more what a bona fide relationship would look like in the last rule. I got pushback because it looked like we might be trying to reduce access. So we're kind of caught in this weird space where statute says one thing, we know something a little bit different is happening. And if there's anything we want to do to bring that in a little bit, or if the committee or the legislature is okay with that, we just need to know what to do.
Great, thank you. Can I follow up, Mr. Chair?
Please.
I'm just thinking on that type of issue about boards of licensure in other fields, medical, social work, counseling. Is there a process like that that I probably should know and don't, that if somebody if there's some sort of standard one follows to be legal to do this work, and if you're violating it in some way, or do we need to back it up and set those standards in place? But I also understand the point about it isn't about reducing care, it's about good quality care.
Right, exactly. I don't want to speak too in detail about it because I know I'd probably get something wrong, but they certainly have their own governing board that sets their certain level of patients they need to have to operate within that space. And it's kind of weird right now because we have that language in our statute, but OMP has very little jurisdiction in that realm. But yeah, they certainly have their own governing boards.
Sorry, and by they?
The medical providers.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Representative McCray. Any other questions for Director Gunderson? I have a couple. They're probably more picayune, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, Director, you mentioned that you added a 17th seat. What capacity was that person added in? Was it a caregiver or a patient, or what was the?
It was additional caregiver representative.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I guess one of the challenges I have in dealing with this topic is we have, I think, with 3,200 registered caregivers, and I don't expect any group to be able to represent the industry as a whole. But was your view on the representative makeup of that committee and the representatives on that committee, did it feel like it was a fairly well balanced representation of the industry as a whole? And I realize nobody's going to agree on everything. I'm trying to establish whether we're going to have concerns about the makeup of the committee and the recommendations coming out of it. If you could maybe speak to that, just to.
I would
just from your opinion. I understand.
Yeah, I would certainly hope not. And I'm confident that the working group members would back us up on saying when we did select them, we did have an eye towards getting a diverse group, both from their views on the program, from the application materials to gender to regional. We tried to get different scales of operators, but I mean, it became apparent really early on that we had done an excellent job on selecting those 17 members. They seemed to work really well together. They were open and honest about their conversations. They were incredibly respectful about some of the more contentious topics. So I was really happy with the 17 members and how they represented themselves and represented the program for sure.
And are you aware of any concerns or questions from anybody on the committee that may have had concerns that it wasn't a good group, or they wish other representatives were there or something along those lines?
Maybe not necessarily a makeup. We did hear some pushback around the process we use specific to the rules. I think some of them thought there was going to be an opportunity for us to sit down as a 17-member group and go line by line through the regulations, which I don't think would be productive in any way, shape, or form. And we had gone through that the year prior. So really our approach was to take the step back, to really get a better understanding of what approach that we should take, and how to start putting that rule together from that larger perspective, as opposed to having 17 people trying to agree on an individual sentence. That was the only thing, but I think at the end of the day, if you go and rewatch the ending of the 5th meeting, we did take a significant amount of time and describe to them, and we put forward a 1-sheet or a 2-sheet about the proposed rule and how we utilized the last 12 hours of conversation to guide us in that rulemaking. We did let them know about timelines. We did let them know, again, high level, what's going to be in the rule, what's not. And there was, I don't want to say universal consensus, but there was universal appreciation of the process we went through and the approach we took to it, while understanding that, hey, again, there's still going to be things in there that you don't like or you don't like, but the general approach and the way that we, again, leverage those conversations to move forward with that rule, I think for the most part, were appreciated.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Senator Hickman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions on, since we're talking a little bit about rules now and also metric continues to be discussed. Around patient confidentiality and metric, there are concerns. But my question is, for the purpose, metric and tracking are supposed to be there to inhibit diversion. And I'm wondering if it requires the users to provide information that don't have anything to do with diversion, like what is your recipe or your formula for certain products? How does that have anything to do with stopping diversion? Some folks think that it might be a company that is just interested in mining data, and we know how important that is today. So that's the question about that. And then my question about the rules, and thank you for clarifying that it wasn't a line by line approval process with these 17 people, but was there any discrepancy with what, say, you announced in the outline in the letter of the rulemaking versus what's actually in the rule?
I'll answer that last question first. I don't think so. We had that 1 or 2 page. I'm happy to go bullet by bullet what we said was not going to be in it and what we said was. I don't think there is any discrepancy. If you have one, you can feel free to share and I can address it. But as far as track and trace, well, first I'll say from our perspective as regulators, track and trace serves a wide, more purposes than just inversion and diversion. While that's certainly one of them, and it's not the silver bullet, we all recognize that it is a deterrent, but there are many more reasons why you might utilize a track and trace or an inventory tracking portal within a cannabis program. But as far as patient confidentiality, interplay with metric or really any inventory tracking portal, I think it would really just stem from a transport manifest where you could easily make sure that you don't have any identifying information if you're doing a patient delivery. And then I'm not quite sure about basic recipes or standard operating procedures living inside of metric. I think that would be more of an administrative tool. And we did remove all of those requirements from our newly proposed rule because there was a lot of value in the feedback we got around that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. Any other questions from the committee? Representative Topeka.
I'm slow on the button.
That's all right.
And maybe I don't know if there's a definition of this, but I'm curious to know, Mr. Gunderson, Director Gunderson, what do you have what is your definition of diversion? Like when you think of diversion, what are you thinking of? Like I wanted to know if we have kind of the same idea of what diversion is.
Diversion, which we would be looking to address with an inventory tracking system or a regulatory agency. It feels a little weird saying this, but we're talking about like pounds, like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah. Okay. Cause in conversation I've had with folks, they've said that there seems to be concern by inspectors about like employees or just small amounts being diverted and then trying to like really dig in and control the whole process. It's just feedback that I've had. So I was just curious if the office itself had kind of a definition or of an idea of what it means when they are addressing diversion. So thank you.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and I may be wrong here, it sounds like that might have been feedback and conversation from adult use, because there's statutory language and regulations around trade samples and employee samples, making sure that cannabis is accounted for, which can be a little nitpicky and talking about very small amounts. That sounds like what it might be. But obviously there for like small amounts, like a pre-roll or something, there would be no way for us to track that on the medical side anyway. So I'm guessing that's what it is. But yeah, when you're talking about inventory tracking and the concerns that we do have, diversion is a much larger sum than some might realize.
Thank you, Representative Topeka. Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a question for Sam or the director. Could somebody point me to any information about the governing board we just talked about? I'd just like to know more about how it functions. Thanks.
Representative McCray, Sam, I'm happy to do that because we have had conversations, what seems like years ago now, with them. So,
please, Director, do you want to do it now, or do you want to just respond in writing another time?
No, I'll respond in writing.
Okay. Understood. Any other questions for Director Gunderson? Okay, I did have one other follow-up. You mentioned you were talking about sharing confidential information with municipalities in terms of oversight and stuff. I just wanted to be clear, I understood. You were referring to the confidentiality of the providers, not necessarily patient confidentiality. Is that correct, or a combination of the two?
No. Confidentiality with regards to registrants, the caregivers, not patients, not the providers, the caregivers within the program.
So in essence, if somebody's working out of their home, they didn't want cameras in their home 24/7 versus a business establishment. Was it? I mean, or is that a gross oversimplification?
Yeah, no. So it really has nothing to do with security surveillance or anything like that. Those are more regulations that we would have jurisdiction over. It was really trying to remove some of the tension and some of the challenges towns have doing what the legislature has authorized them to do, which they're able to regulate, and some require permits, some require zoning, but they're unable to do that if they have, say they have 30 registrants within their borders. They don't know who they are, and we can't proactively share that list, so they can't enforce or have that working relationship with those individuals. They have to come to us for verification in a one-off form. So this conversation really tied to the scaling, trying to figure out a definition that works better than just caregiver right now, realizing we have a small traditional caregiver versus an entity that operates at a scale even larger than some dispensaries, right? So that's what it came down to, was really what do those registrants look like where confidentiality goes away with respect to municipalities, so they're able to do their job, knows what's happening within their borders, knows what authorized activities are happening, and can do their.
Oh, I think we may have lost him. He's frozen. Let's give
at the end of confidentiality, but if they operate more on a commercial level or have other structures on their property that information OMP can freely share with municipalities so they can do their jobs.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to let you know, Director, you did have a moment, you froze up there on us for a moment there, but I
saw
certainly
that.
got the gist. I got the gist of what you were saying. So, and we may, take an opportunity to try and work with MMP and the providers to kind of strike that balance too with that.
Yeah, and you can, again, I think the vast majority of the conversation and where we kind of got to that conclusion was half of the fifth meeting, but the conversation did start in the fourth meeting. But if you want to go back and read the transcripts or watch the video, it's the second half of the fifth meeting.
All right. Thank you, sir. Representative Wood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Gunderson, my prior questions were about tracking, and now my question is about testing. And sometimes I accidentally switch those words around, but right now, I was just trying to understand a little bit more about the report out of the testing. I thought I heard you saying that for the larger caregiver or the larger businesses, there would be testing requirements, but the small caregivers, there would not be testing requirements.
Yeah, again, there were a lot of conversations about testing starting from the first meeting. And I can't remember who actually first started the conversation, whether it was a patient, I'm sure it was a patient representative or maybe a caregiver representative, but it definitely went through the 5 meetings. And at some point we were asked to bring forward some type of proposal to pull together all of the conversations to have like a centralized jump off point to continue the conversation. So what we heard for, and we've obviously advocated for some level of testing in the program. And I think I've shared with this group, there's still statutory language that says the department shall implement mandatory testing for the program. Our proposal, which again is an appendix in your report, was if a product is being sold in a commercial fashion, basically if it's on a dispensary store shelf or a caregiver store shelf, that it needs to go through some type of mandatory testing regime. And also incorporated in that proposal was what we've heard from all these other different conversations, like maintaining access, making sure that we don't make the price of medicine skyrocket so it's not being able to be affordable. So we took the approach of really, in the proposal, the initial analytes, the initial panels were the most important, at least for patient understanding, patient knowledge, and also those analytes that we know have a negative health effect, but are also, we know, are there in higher levels. And then to slowly bring on others, again, in final form. And there was a lot of support from that, from some of our patient representatives, certainly from our caregiver representatives and dispensary representatives and testing representatives. But there were some industry representatives that still pushed back on any type of mandatory testing for a number of different reasons. And then the idea was brought up, all right, let's do some type of voluntary testing with a transparency piece at the very least. If we're not going to do a mandatory testing for those more commercial entities, at least we can let the patients know what they're getting and what they're not. Whereas OMP can move forward with the scope of this mandatory testing and these certain analytes and what needs to be tested for, again, on a much scaled back level than adult use. And it can be voluntary. So if you go through that testing, then you can put your product on shelves or sell it to patients. But if you choose not to, there needs to be a bright red label that lets the patients know that this product has not been tested. And it seems like at the end of the day, that's where most people started to come to have more of a consensus approach, a good first step towards introducing some type of testing, or at the very least voluntary testing with transparency in the labeling. Again, while I think there was consensus to also allow the Office of Marijuana Policy to do audit testing, where we can take some of the responsibility for testing for contaminants off the industry and onto us.
Thank you. That's helpful. Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to say that I think this report is excellent. I think that you've tackled a lot of the stuff that we were hearing last year. And my question, Mr. Chair, is what's next? Now that we have this report, what's our next steps?
Right, that's a perfect segue, Representative. I was going to get to that at the end too, but if there aren't any more questions, then absolutely. So as a committee, we have a couple of options. Oh, sorry, Senator Hickman, did you want to ask a question first?
Yeah, just one more question, if you don't mind. Thank you. I noticed in the report, which I agree with Representative Wood, is beautiful and comprehensive. I do notice that there are some folks on the working group that were not mandated by law. They weren't prohibited either. At the very least, the dispensaries were a part of the working group that were not outlined in the law to be a part of the working group. So obviously the Office of Marijuana Policy had the discretion to include those members on this working group. Are there applications coming in for the new dispensaries? Is that one of the reasons why you included them, or you just included them for other reasons?
Well, I included them because I should say the Office of Marijuana Policy included them because they're a registrant type within the program. Again, the more stakeholders you have around the table to find consensus and have some difficult questions, the better. We could have certainly had a working group with all like-minded folks and really not gotten anywhere. But if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. You have to have all impacted stakeholders around the table because there are so many. So that was the thought process. They're part of the program. They're going to be affected by any change of the rules or statute that they should have a seat at the table like every other stakeholder. And yes, we have received a lot of dispensary applications.
What is a lot of?
I'm going to get this number wrong. I think we've issued something like 8 or 9 new dispensary licenses with maybe double or triple that that are in the queue. I can get those accurate numbers. I would have to talk to my director of licensing.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
And Director, were those just on the medical side, or were those across the board?
No, yeah, those are medical dispensaries.
Medical only. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Any other questions for the Director? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Director Gunnison. I agreed. Very thorough report and certainly given us a lot as policymakers to chew on. So you're welcome to stay if you want. We're just going to kind of wrap things up, but I understand you probably have you have a lot of things on your plate right now.
I'll hang out in the background, but also happy to engage and work with the committee on anything that comes out of this report. Like I said before, it was a great experience and we had a fantastic makeup. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. So the next steps for the committee. So again, and I think Director Gunnison alluded to that a little bit. And it's important it was a good level set for me. So I'm not necessarily saying everybody else in the committee needs this refresher, but I certainly needed it. Was that, they're the executive branch. They enforce the policies that we make, right? So we need to make sure that, collectively from a policy perspective, we decide the direction that they want to take and not necessarily have OMP leading. Their job is implementation of what we decide as policymakers. So I did appreciate the format of that report with giving us suggestions of areas to look at. So to answer your question, Representative, what are the next steps? Both LD 882 and LD 1242 authorize the committee to report out legislation. That certainly is an option that we have to report out separate individual legislation. It can be time consuming to do that. But it is an option that we have as a committee. The other option we have is we also have at least 2, possibly more vehicles that are going to be for this committee regarding medical marijuana, and we could utilize those as vehicles for amendments or for topics of discussion that we feel are important or areas that we want to highlight from this report to address. And we certainly can look at that on a bill by bill basis, or if the committee would like, we can have a separate work session just to go through the report and ferret out, maybe prioritize what it is we're looking at as policymakers to set our priorities in, and then that might inform what we're looking at for bills coming down the road just in this session. That's probably I would assume that would be the fastest, and I will defer to Sam. I'm very hesitant to send him down the rabbit hole of having him create new legislation and amendments and things like that, only to have us, go, well, I think we're okay for now, or, we're going to make a lot of substantial changes. Remember, we also have rulemaking that's coming as well, possibly. in this session. That's another thing that we can look at as well. But I think, and again, I'll let Sam speak to what, to procedurally and administratively, probably the best and most efficient way to do it. But the bottom line is this committee has a number of options and a number of opportunities we can address this report through. So, Sam, did I miss anything, or did I mislead anybody in any way?
Thank you, Representative Kelso. That all was accurate. Just to give the committee maybe just a little bit more info when you're thinking about strategy for how to deal with legislation that might come out of these reports. As Representative Kelso stated, if the committee decides to generate its own legislation based on the authority you have that was in the establishing bills that created these working groups, that process would look like we could schedule a committee meeting. You would vote on what you would like to be in that legislation, and then that would get reported out to the greater body. We would which would trigger the process of creating a bill, and we would have to go through the drafting process and have it printed, and then that bill will get referred back to the committee for public hearing and work session. There are ways to expedite that process, as in there are ways to do it so you can send it out and have it not come back to you. But that's just to kind of give you the brief overview, and we can get into that deeper if that's an option you're looking at. But as Representative Kelso mentioned, we do have a number of medical marijuana bills that are before the committee this session, and they address many aspects of the program that are certainly relevant to the report that you just received. So the committee can also tackle this by amending any of those bills. And that would, in some ways, be an easier and more efficient way for you to go. And without having to wait for another legislative, another time where the House and Senate come in to have session, wait for the entire initial drafting process to work itself through. So, if you're comfortable doing it that way, I think that might be the easier and faster option for the committee.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. So I guess really the question for the committee is we certainly can, we can schedule some committee time, basically like a working session around the report. If that's the will of the committee, we can start prying some of this apart and maybe putting some details to it, or roughing out some ideas if we wanted to. And we can start that approach, and then or we could individually we can kind of look at the report, see what's important to them, and then we can discuss like what bills as they come up where those amendments would be most appropriate. So Sam, sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I just occurred to me too when you were saying that it may also be advantageous for the committee to wait until we have the public hearings on the medical bills. So you have kind of the full slate of information and proposals in front of you before you start putting together how you want to move forward.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. That's a much smarter approach. Senator Farron.
What Sam just said.
That's the best endorsement I've heard all day. All right. So, any questions or concerns or comments about how we'll proceed as a committee? And again, this doesn't, there's a lot to digest. We're just kind of seeing this, so I would encourage each of you to take some time and dig in and go through the report and see. Remember, we've got to put the guardrails in place, and it's really up to the Office of Marijuana Quantity as the executive to enforce. So we've got to tell them what our expectations are, and hopefully we can be as clear as we possibly can when we do that. So, questions, concerns, comments? All right. Well, seeing none, I believe we are concluded for our work today. Sam, anything on your docket that you want to bring up or anything? No?
All set on my end.
Excellent. All right. Karen, anything from your side that we need to, no, we're good? It's all good? Excellent. So is this the week? This is the week we are in Augusta on Wednesday. So I look forward to seeing you all in the morning. I assume we're going to start at 10 like we normally do, but I haven't heard anything different. So look forward to seeing you all. Representative Kinney, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Just a quick question for Karen, wondering if she has any bill folders for any of us available. It's okay if you don't. I just was wondering, and I'll come pick it up on Wednesday if you have anything.
Yes, I do. They are in the files and they are in a horseshoe order, and I'll put a copy of the horseshoe in case I'm not here, so it's easy for you to see. And they're also labeled what were carryover bills, what are new bills. And I have another drawer for all the marijuana stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Representative McCray.
I just want to say thank you to Representative Kinney for that reminder. I'm going to do the same thing. Thanks.
Very nice. Representative Wood.
I just wanted to thank Representative Kinney for bringing this up because I have no idea what you were just talking about. I assume the horseshoe is the room that we should be sitting in, but I don't know what's up there.
Now, Representative Wood, I know that's not accurate because I've been in that room when you've appeared in it. So I know you know at least where it is.
I know where it is. It was like 3 in the morning when I was up there. Not just with you. I was with other people also.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? No, I'm just Karen, you want to?
The disappointments of doing all the Zoom is we don't have that committee work, and you don't the newer people. I think about Morgan and Barb, and they don't know what those folders are that we've always had in the. And they're really useful tools. That has the bill, it has copies of testimony. They're really very useful tools for us as legislators.
Yeah, and Karen, please, if you want to, maybe you could just walk through it, like the things you put in the. We'll go back to our initial training because we never really had the training in front of the horseshoe of what we're using all this documentation and stuff for. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've done my best to print anything that has come in through the portal or otherwise, and along with Sam or Janet's respective bill analysis, anything that's amendments or additional information. A copy of the bill will be in the front, and they're all labeled. And again, I'll put a copy of the horseshoe because normally when I'm here in the room and you're here in the room, I would pass them out in that order. So that's why they're in that order. So Representative Wood, you happen to be first because the way that the seating chart is. So anyway, and if I'm here and I can help, I'm happy to, or just reach out to me if you need something. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you, Karen.
So we have to go up to the room to get this file?
Yes.
Is that,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, you do. Yeah. In essence, Barb, it's literally everything that's related to the bill. It's just in hard copy format. Instead of, and right now I'm still struggling with it, but picking and, trying to find what's in the emails, what's in the committee report. And Janet did a good job, if you remember, explaining to us all that information is there electronically. It's just sometimes it's helpful to have all that information, in one stop in hard copy, so you can write on and make notes and things like that. So,
But we weren't getting that last year at all, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. I thought
Mr. Chair, don't forget about the secret handshake as well.
Yeah.
No, we have to. They need that training in person. That's
okay. Right. Just want to make sure that we got all the rules laid out there so that everyone knows.
One other thing, Mr. Chair, if I may, there are a couple very large documents that so far I've only printed one. I'm trying to think including this medical marijuana report that I printed. I'd be happy to print as needed. Like this one was 134 pages and I would print it I would prefer to print it double-sided if I was to print it for someone else. But I think there were some other documents that we had that were very, very large. So just reach out if that's something that you want, and I would be happy to do that for you.
Yes, and thank you for that, Karen. I would prefer to do it on an as-needed basis. Karen's got a bunch of extra responsibilities now that we're doing remote too. So, you know, I don't want to say it was easier, but she probably had more time to accomplish that when we were all in the same room together in local, and she didn't have to deal with all the stuff behind the curtain to keep the Zoom meetings going and the YouTube stuff going and everything else. So please just be cognizant of her time and respectful of her time as well. And obviously she's been very, very accommodating, and I doubt she would ever say no, but just please be patient and cognizant of utilizing their time. And with Sam and Janet as well. They also have got a lot of stuff on their plates as well. So, you know, obviously if the information is critical, you got to have it, they'll provide it, but please just kind of have that in the back of your head of, you know, is it really necessary, or is it something that I might be able to get on my own or get easier. So Sam, sorry.
What Karen just said also reminded me. So we have a resolve dealing with the major substantive rules for the adult use program currently in our possession. And with that resolve, the department had delivered to my office hard copies of the adult use rules for each committee member. And I have dropped those off with Karen in the VLA committee room. So if you want a hard copy, you can go there and pick one up. And should we get the medical rules this session as well, it'll be the same process. They will give me hard copies and I'll leave them there for you to pick up if you want them.
Thank you, Sam. Okay. So short of the secret handshake that we will all learn in person, Representative McCray.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry. I just wanted to ask Senator Farron, is secret handshake never before 3 a.m., right? So that's why
never
Barb missed it.
before.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
before.
Okay. And really appreciate Sam and Karen on that. And you know, it was a real loss last year not to have the hard copies, but it made sense this year because there's some hope of coming back, I think is why it shifted, and very much appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Senator Farron?
Yeah, yes. And on that, we talk about Sam and Karen, and we all don't take time. I think we ought to recognize our House Chair for holding things together while we're still waiting to hear how things are going to shake out. So thank you, Chris, for all you do and holding things together on this and keeping us moving forward.
Thank you, sir. It is totally a team effort. I just read stuff. So it's you guys are all pulling it together, and I am extremely appreciative. So thank you for all the work you guys are doing. I know it's a lot for us. It really is. So thank you. Okay, so before I start crying, maybe we should adjourn, and I look forward to seeing you guys all in person Wednesday morning. Be safe, and we will see you then. So we are adjourned for the day. Thank you.